Arcane Austin was working on a big Redfall update for May before Microsoft ditched the game and closed the studio. This comes from Wesley Inpool at IGN. The now abandoned Redfall has a roadmap of support that was being actively worked on before Microsoft scrapped all development and closed its developer, IGN can reveal. Arcane Austin was working on DLC and updates for the game with the expectation they would release until very recently. IGN understands, suggesting Microsoft's internal announcement today that it was closing the developers as well as Hi-Fi Rush studio Tango Gameworks came as a shock to staff. IGN was told that the now canceled Hero Pass content, which was set to add 2 new characters to the vampire co-op shooter, was scheduled for release this Halloween. If it had come out then, the Hero Pass would have released a year and a half after Redfall suffered a disastrous launch and with an ever-shrinking player base. There's now fresh concern that the always-online Redfall could become unplayable if and when Microsoft shuts its servers off. In March last year, ahead of Redfall's release, Arcane Austin said it was working on a fix that would reverse Redfall's always-online requirement, an aspect that was met with backlash when first announced. In an interview with Eurogamer, game director Harvey Smith said, quote, "We listen, and we've already started work to address this in the future. We have to do some things like encrypt your save games and do a bunch of UI work to support it, and so we're looking into it. I'm not supposed to promise anything, but we're looking into it and working actively toward fixing it in the future." However, that offline mode failed to materialize. IGN understands Redfall's May update would have added the ability to play offline, which in turn would have helped with keeping the game alive in the future. Unfortunately for players, it will never see the light of day.
This is so sad, man.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the thing that really sticks with me is the idea that because they are not able to finish this offline feature, if they do pull it, the people who have spent money on this game will never be able to play it again. That kills me because now and look, don't get me wrong. You know, we spend money on things that kind of appear and disappear, but there's something about games, man. There's something about the idea of being able to, it's like buying a DVD of a film, you know, and kind of holding it and keeping it as yours. And I know a lot of the conversations at the moment are with digital as well. So specifically this idea of, is it really yours? And yeah, it's just so sad. This is one of those ones where it's, again, now being a developer and having seen it from the other side, this is just it's been really sad to watch and witness because, yeah, you can kind of feel like it wasn't their choice really to make maybe the decisions that were being made. It was instructed to, this is the zeitgeist at the moment, make something like this. And it didn't work because it didn't feel creatively there. It had the flair of it all, don't get me wrong. Like I think, like I remember watching you know, when the reveal of the trailer and everything and all this stuff, like it looked like this game looked like it could be really, really good. But yeah, launch kicked up, didn't do well. People were complaining about it. It's just felt again like a fight after fight on something that almost felt like it didn't have to be. If you went down, and again, I can't speak for them, but I feel like if for me, it's like go down the direction you wanted to go down rather than necessarily chasing the zeitgeist.
And that's the most interesting thing about this to me is I wonder if we'll ever get the answers. And I wonder, I mean, I'm sure we could probably try to ask somebody, but who knows how honest they'll be. But like when you look at Rocksteady with Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and you look at here with Arcane and Redfall, from the jump, when those games were announced and talked about, all of us were looking at this like, that doesn't seem like this is what they want to do. Right. And I wonder if it is. I want to hear from those developers because I don't want to keep saying this is clearly not what they wanted to do. Yeah. If it is what they wanted to do.
And it just
really doesn't seem like it was what they wanted to do. And like I know it's so easy for me to sit here and be like, well, that's not going to fucking work. And then when it doesn't work, being like, I fucking told you so. But it's like, it just keeps happening with these type of games. And so it is rough, especially when it comes from studios that make classics that that have a defined identity.
Man. Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's like when they go a bit off piece, it's a bit like, hang on, who told you about this? It's very different. You look at Moon Studios, for example, and you see, you know, they building with Ori, and then now they're on No Rest for the Wicked. It's different to Ori. Artistically, you know, there's a vibe there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is a piece that they decided they wanted to do, and they were able to drive that, and you can feel that, and you can see that. I didn't feel it with this. Neither did I feel it with Suicide Squad. And again, as I say, like I'd be very interested to actually hear devs and hear them actually talk about the actual processes of making this. I mean, you never know. They might have decided like, oh, okay, maybe this would be a good idea. Maybe we could add something, you know, exciting about evolving the live service idea element of it all or sprucing it up. But Yeah, this is just really sad, man. Because you can also imagine the amount of, from a business standpoint, you can imagine the money that was poured into this and thrown into this. And if it's seen as a failure, it's the dev's fault. It isn't necessarily like, you know, the business's fault, right? And that's wrong. But then you can also see as well from the dev's perspective, like, because again, you put a lot of yourself into something. Like no matter where you're from, where you're working at, whatever you do, you're putting a bit of yourself into something. So for you to witness almost it crumble and fall, it's hard.
Oh, dude, the emotional toll, let alone like all the rest of the toll, the financial toll, like all the other things that like all of these decisions are having on people. But the emotional toll of like, if you're doing something creative, at bare minimum, some of you is being put into it. At maximum, all of you is being put into it. And when you have something like Redfall, where regardless of if the dev's there, and if it's not just one dev, there are many, many, many devs. So there's many opinions there. Them making this game and these games, if at one point they're like, I don't want to make this, but then years into it, they're like, well, we're here, and I'm now proud of what we did, even though I didn't want to from the beginning. Yeah. And now we're at a point of like, hey, we want to turn this around. We want this to be better.
Yeah, this is
work
it.
so hard,
and then that's pulled from you. It's horrible.
Totally. And again, not a surprise. Like, obviously, this isn't going to come out like after the news yesterday. Like, this is the way that this stuff goes. And I do feel like there's a lot of gamers out there that are consumers that are just entitled to like, well, like we're promised this, whatever. And it's like, guys, the team is gone. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, it's like, and who do we blame here? Leadership. Absolutely.
Totally.
It's not just like, oh, nobody's to blame. No, but it's not these devs to be blamed here.
You know,
and
they were just trying to do what's right. They were listening. And I think and that's the thing. But again, it's there. you can only do so much. Yeah.
And this just reminds me, like Rooster Teeth was closed down last month, and they have days left as a company, period. I think May 10th is their final day to ever exist. One of the most heartbreaking closures of my entire life. Like, I would not be here if it weren't for Rooster Teeth. Everybody watching knows that and knows that story. The amount of friends I have that are affected by this and I've been talking to, and how much it affects them in so many different ways, not just the financial side, but the emotional toll.
Yeah, it's personal.
How much they've poured into this and now it's just gone, and what do they do? But then having so many community members, some of them well-intentioned, but still hitting them up of like, hey, is there going to be one final merch round? Is there going to be, are you going to do one more episode of this? Are you going to do what? And it's like, guys, the company doesn't exist anymore. Man. There's not infrastructure to do these things.
To do any of this stuff.
And there's so many horrible things here. But this episode's brought to you by Aura Frames. Looking for the perfect gift to celebrate the moms in your life? Aura Frames are beautiful Wi-Fi connected digital picture frames that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. It's super easy to upload and share photos via the Aura app. And if you're giving an Aura as a gift, you can even personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. Greg, Kevin, and a ton of people here at Kind of Funny are obsessed with their Aura frames. It takes about 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. You can add unlimited photos and videos and invite as many people as you want to a frame. Aura displays photos in true color and automatically adjusts for the light level of the room. At night, when you turn off the lights, your frame also turns off to save energy. From grandmothers to new mothers, aunts, and even the friends in your life, every mom would love an Aura frame. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame. That's auraframes.com and use code KINDOFFUNNY at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. This episode's brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers an unrivaled product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and world-class optics for all outdoor adventures. With an extensive array of styles and colors, you're bound to find the perfect pair of Shady Rays sunglasses. Y'all know I've been outside in the sun playing a lot of Pokemon Go, and it's such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I am out and about looking dope. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you lose or break a pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Exclusively for you, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code KF20 for $20 off each pair of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. This episode's brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. I'm currently planning a wedding, so I know all about that. But when we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. You can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace, and it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. Xbox's Perfect Dark reboot is in, quote, a very rough state. It's claimed. This comes from Jordan Midler at VGC. Xbox's upcoming Perfect Dark reboot is reportedly facing challenges and is in a very rough state. Speaking on the Giant Bombcast, journalist Jeff Grubb spoke about the game in the wake of the closure of several Xbox studios on Tuesday. The fallout from this is, I've been hearing more and more that Perfect Dark is in a rough state. Sounds like it's in a very rough state. It doesn't sound like it's really come together in any way. VG247 journalist Alex Donaldson echoed this, describing it as, quote, a team really trying hard to push a boulder up a steep hill. Video game historian Liam Robertson said, from what little I have heard about the development of the new Perfect Dark, it sounds like a future video in the making, just a big, protracted mess. And for those that don't know, Liam does a lot of deep dive videos into canceled projects and old games that had a lot of like tumultuous development and all that, and does an amazing job with that. In June 2023, IGN reported that the reboot was in the earliest stages of development and was likely still 2 to 3 years away from release. While the project was announced in 2020, nothing's been shown of it since, following years of reported setbacks that have stalled development. What do you think about this?
I feel like we're going through a really big change in the industry when it comes to approaching and making games and IP and just the sort of the expectation and the life of it all. Like, I feel like, because context is king, right? I don't know what the proposed budget or idea of this is, but I imagine it's very, very big.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like, again, being now a game dev myself, games are always very, very rough. Like, it's never like sorted until genuinely the last minute, unless you're like you're blessed and lucky like The Last of Us or anything like that. But even then, you're still building a lot, right? So I still don't know, but there is a part of me that's also thinking, the bigger the budget, the higher the risk, and the more stress you've got to put to make profit on, especially something like Perfect Dark. Like, I think we've also learned as well that no matter what your IP is, I mean, look at Prince of Persia, for example, right? Prince of Persia, huge IP, has been known for very, very long, for ages. And the game, amazing, incredible. But then you're coming out with reports saying that it didn't sell very well. And that's scary. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's like, I'm sure it is, and I don't really know too much about how difficult it is at the moment. But yeah, if it's a huge, big budget game, and news of this is already spreading like this, I mean, it's an uphill battle, man. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the Prince of Persia call out there too, because I do feel like Perfect Dark and Prince of Persia are similar franchises in that at a time they were the biggest things.
They were it. They were the thing.
Yeah, and to Prince of Persia, back in the OG days was so important, and then during the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era, they were so important too, of just like critically acclaimed, selling incredibly well, and then Ubisoft kind of overdid it, and then moved on to Assassin's Creed with that, and then bringing back Prince of Persia now. I love The Lost Crown. Like, currently, it is still my game of the year.
It's incredible. It's like a technical masterpiece. Like, it's brilliant, and it did have, people knew about it. And it's a known IP.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People were waiting. What's the next Prince of Persia going to be? then it's like, oh, but didn't it hit?
Yeah, and I feel like with Perfect Dark, there's even more lofty expectations, specifically because Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, being a 2D Metroidvania, very different than what people might have expected from Prince of Persia reboot, based on the previous games that they were playing, that harken back more to the originals. With Perfect Dark, with what that game was on the N64, and then on the 360, it was a launch title that people did not like, Perfect Dark Zero. So this is really the second attempt at bringing back a franchise that should be major, has Joanna Dark, this character that could be one of the standout
Iconic,
characters, IP characters for Xbox, specifically a woman, amazing, right?
Yeah,
a female, a heroine in a video game from the earlier days.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of cachet there, but there's also, like you keep saying, uphill battle to get it right. And it's very disheartening to hear this. It's not surprising to hear this. You know, that game was announced a long time ago and we haven't heard anything from it. And, you know, that does add up when you think about it being Xbox that is behind it and what everything Xbox has been doing and going through the last couple of years. So many shakeups, so many acquisitions, so many new teams, restructures, organizing, all of that stuff. It's like they only have so many places to talk about games. And I feel like their MO recently has been more so to focus on their showcases, talking about games that are coming sooner than later. And I feel like with Perfect Dark, it's kind of like they announced it in 2020 and they're not going to talk about it until it's like, and it's coming within the next year.
And that's just not cool, man. Because I think as well with the times that we're in today, like we want to know more. Like information is accessible to everyone and anyone. So you've got to keep us in the loop. And if this is the only piece of information we're getting after like it doesn't bode very well. It as a consumer, as a gamer, it makes me shut off. Yeah, you know. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I don't want to be disappointed.
I'm not too concerned about them not showing it in a couple of years, mainly because they've had so much to show. Mainly because like their showcases have been so jam-packed and like, you know, then you add Bethesda and now they have all Bethesda stuff. Then you add now Activision. It's like they have just a lot of games to talk about and things to focus on. And I feel like Perfect Dark is potentially, hopefully, the type of game that they can be like, hey, all eyes on this. Like last year, they ended their showcase. They had their showcase and then they did the Starfield showcase after in their summer placement. This year, they're doing that with Call of Duty. I feel like Perfect Dark should be that type of tentpole game.
Totally.
Everything we're hearing, it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. And that's definitely a bummer. You know, it's really, really sad to hear that because I'm excited for Perfect Dark, but I feel like the last news we heard on it is like, what was it? Crystal Dynamics was helping out with this?
I think so,
is that right?
I think it is, yeah.
They're like trying to get different groups together, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it is a little bit like, oh, they needed help. They you know, things aren't going.
Things aren't going in the way that they should. Now it's you know, again, help from other external forces, more cooks in the kitchen. It's just it just spirals that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to stay tuned and see where this goes. But do you think Perfect Dark sees the light of day?
I think it will, but not to the expectation that people will think.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
God,
I feel
that's
like
rough, man.
I know, and that's what's scary about it because it's like a lot of hype to, you know, and it's just. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's one of those ones where, I mean, look, this is the perfect story for the underdog story for him to pull it out the bag, and it's suddenly like this. It changes the landscape of it as a whole. But I don't know. We've seen this happen several times, and
totally. And what's also interesting, chat, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Wasn't this the game that kind of coined the quadruple A thing? I'm pretty sure that it was. So it's like that's even more
terrible,
scary and upsetting because not only is that terrible, it's also like given everything that's happened in the last 4 years since this game was announced, like at the time in 2020 when it was announced, saying quadruple A, we're all making fun of it and we're all just like, what are you doing? That is not the direction things should be going. Yeah. And especially now looking back, it's like, y'all, that is not the direction because if it's not looking good and you're talking about Prince of Persia not selling well, whatever. I'm not expecting Perfect Dark is going to be the best-selling game of all time. How is that going to support a quadruple A development that is not going well, that is probably going to be extended, and then result in what? More studio closures, more layoffs. Man. It's scary, man.
I think that's the scary part. You can see it coming and see it happening because they think money's going to solve the issue here.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's when that isn't the case. We've seen that time and time again. That isn't the case. So we'll see. Quadruple A, man.
I know.
What kind of crazy. It's like you're setting yourself up to fail. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally, man. It's unfortunate. And the other thing too is it's like going back to Prince of Persia. I feel like them going the style they did of a 2D Metroidvania was a very, very, very smart call. I would love nothing more than a super, super highly produced like third-person action game like we got before, action adventure game. I just feel like I feel like that would sell even worse. I feel like that would cost way more.
It's gonna be harder.
Making the game that they made, it's like, okay, that was like a smart use of the IP, I think. And even that showed, like, I hope that there's a return for that game. Like, I hope that like, they're putting out more DLC, they're putting out stuff. I hope that it gets, like, Game of the Year editions or something that, like, gets more eyes on it.
I think it will, because I think, again, it's the people love it.
Yeah.
And it is universally loved. It just, again, the climate that we're in, it just takes a longer time for these things to kind of hit well. But with the, you know, on a business perspective, for example, like, look, put it this way, it didn't sell well to the companies. If you know, it could sell, that kind of number could sell well for many, many people, and there's a long tail to it, right? It's like we're assessing it after what, a month or two, or whatever?
Totally, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so I think there's also that expectation, but yeah, I mean, like, if we've also got news, like, for example, Alan Wake didn't make its money back, and that's seen as a bad thing, and you know, it's just scary. Yeah. It's just really scary.
And I think applying that to Perfect Dark is even scarier because with what we've seen in Perfect Dark doesn't seem like it's going to be the exact same type of first-person shooter that it used to be, but I feel like then instead it is trying to compete with the Uncharted's of the world, which I feel like that's an even scarier thing to do.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's so big, especially, again, as you say, like, you know, it's a long time, man, since we last saw the last Perfect Dark. So you're thinking, in between then, we had the God of Wars, we had the Last of Us, we've had these really high caliber, great games, which were expensive, but hey, they hit. That's what you got to match up to now.
Yeah. Or don't try. Do something different. You know,
be
set
creative.
Goals that are realistic.
Be creative.
It's
being creative. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and again, like, I don't want to pull it away from the game space, but you look at like the film and TV space, for example, and you look at what Marvel are doing, like X-Men 97. It's like,
absolutely,
honestly, hands down, incredibly
one of the best things I've ever seen. Period.
Honestly, and it's clever, it's inventive. It's like this is true to its core. We're not pulling out these massive films that are not going to make their money back, you know, or if they do, they barely scrape the surface, even though it's a lot of money. So it's like, be creative. That's the beauty of this art form, and that's why I think also the reason why The Lost Crown was so loved was because it was creative. It was interesting. It was brilliant. It wasn't the stereotypical sort of third-person action element of it all, even though that's probably what people thought they wanted or that they wanted to feel. But as soon as that game came out with that technical brilliance, people were like, you know what, actually, this is art. This is cool.
Yeah, man.